Today is June 27th, 2010. I'm your host, Shepard, on the Decompression session. We're also going to be joined by our other host, Jeff Weber. And we got a couple... Hey, Jeff, how's it going? We got a couple very special guests tonight. This is going to be an interesting show, Jeff. I can't wait. Tonight, Jeff, we're going to be joined by Freeman from FreemanTV.com. and Jay Weidner, a filmmaker. I mean, this is going to be great. They both kind of dabble in the same type of information. So tonight, Jeff, we're going to get to pick their brain. This ought to be pretty interesting. What do you think?
I think I couldn't be more excited about it. It's going to be a very interesting conversation we have this evening.
Awesome. I think the same. I'm just going to get down to it. I'm going to read both their bios. And then we'll just bring them on the air and say hi to them. Let's start with Freeman. Freeman is an internationally known, award-winning TV producer, filmmaker, radio talk show host, and lecturer. Freeman is considered an expert in the fields of the occult, trauma-based mind control, government conspiracy, and ancient civilization. Freeman graduated with an Associate of Arts with honors in interdisciplinary studies and attended Kansas University specializing in ancient and environmental architecture. Freeman has lectured extensively on Templar history, secret signs and symbolism of Freemasonry, the ancient astronaut hypothesis, trauma-based mind control, and government cover-ups. So, Freeman, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Jay Weidner is a renowned author, filmmaker, and Hermetic scholar, considered to be a modern-day Indiana Jones for his ongoing worldwide quest to find clues to mankind's spiritual destiny via ancient societies and artifacts. His body of work offers great insight into the circumstances that have led to the current global crisis. He is a producer of documentary films 2012, The Odyssey, its sequel, Time Wave 2013, and the director of the forthcoming feature documentary, Infinity, The Ultimate Trip. Jay Weidner and Freeman, it is a pleasure to have you on the Decompression session today. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I'm a Shepard, and the other host is Jeff Weber, the one that sounds kind of like Jesse Ventura. That's Jeff Weber.
So, how you doing tonight? Good to meet you.
Hey, it's good to meet you. Jesse's a friend of mine, so it's great.
Maybe should I say, good to meet you, brothers.
Hey, it's great to have you guys here. Hey, I thought we could start out with the Illuminati a little bit and symbolism and kind of, get the listeners into it and get a feel for what we're going to be talking about and everything. Feel free, because we're all on here, so if someone wants to jump in and get going with the question, maybe the other person can elaborate on it or something like that, and some of these questions will be directed toward each one of you specifically, so we'll just see how it goes. This ought to be pretty interesting. Getting into... Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say to Jay that it's fantastic to finally talk with you, that you and I seem to be brothers of another mother, and I think it's fantastic we finally get to meet.
Yeah, it's fine and interesting. You went to University of Kansas. I'm from that area, so
oh, nice.
Maybe it's something about the Midwest gives you a practical outlook, and you can see things as they really are.
Wow, this is neat. Right here on the Decompression session, we're having this go down for everyone. So a very special treat, very interesting. So let's see what happens. Illuminati and symbolism, guys. Freeman, why don't you start out on this, and then let's let Jay expand on it. What are the roots of the original Illuminati power structure, and what is the Illuminati in general?
Roots of the Illuminati. Well, okay, it's a very curious thing because this is a very young science that we're dealing with here, the conspiracy theory of the Illuminati. So the person, Anthony J. Hilder, who is the one who coined the term Illuminati to encompass all the different brotherhoods, is still alive. So the man that started us all calling every group the Illuminati is still alive. That should show you how young this science is that we're in here. But the science that led up to us being here is millennia old. So when you speak of the Illuminati, we generally look at this as an overarching theme of all the brotherhoods that come together. But when you really boil it down, the Illuminati were the Bavarian Illuminati started by Adam Weishaupt, which might possibly and very likely be the Scottish Rite Freemasonry now. But when we start to look at what we're dealing with, what really clued me in, and I don't know if this is off the question, but when I started into my understandings of conspiracy, and I was taking it pretty straight and normal, Waco, something obviously wrong there, using military tactics on national Americans, and very open to just the normal conspiracy theory, but then it started to expand with the corporate logos, with understanding the Freemasonic connections to the creation of America, to the very name, the title America, actually standing for Venus within the Templar regions, the Templar origins of the word. And the fact that all of the founding fathers and all of the constitutional signers and all of these people that have crafted this country were Freemasons. Then you get deeper and deeper and you find out all the corporations are founded by Freemasons. And it was their corporate logos that actually clued me into many of the inner mysteries of the order, strangely enough.
Absolutely. Jay, what do you know about the Illuminati, and why do you think it was formed? And does the symbolism have extraterrestrial or demonic roots? Do any of you have an answer for that?
Well, my take is a little bit different, but close in. Because I am actually more interested in ancient sciences and things like alchemy and Indian texts like the Puranas. Although I've always been a conspiracy theorist for at least 25 years now, and rightfully, am proud of that. I have what I'm trying to do is I've been trying to back engineer all of this so I can figure it out, and I've come up against this incredible fact that the Purana texts say that this age that we're in is going to end in 2442 AD. And what struck me weird about that was exactly 666 years after 1776, which is the founding of the Illuminati by Weishaupt and the founding of America. And also that the geometry and the number system that this group uses is based on the number 37, and 37 times 18 is 666. 37 times, is that right? 37 times 18 is 666, and 37 times 12 is 555, which is the height of the Washington Monument. And I began looking at the geometry in Washington, and I realized that it was all based on these 666, 444, 777, 555, which are all multiples of the number 37. I'm not going to get into why it's a multiple of 37 because that would take 5 hours. But what it did tell me was that some group who obviously knew ancient, possibly ET sciences, was responsible for building Washington, D.C. And the fact that it was 666 years before the end of the target date in which they say a gigantic coronal mass ejections are going to bake the Earth. So I have now surmised that, just like Freeman, that the Freemasonic organizations are the modern versions of this ancient group, and it's not the regular Freemasons. It's a group that sits above the Freemasons. They sift through Freemasons and pick out the ones that they think will do their bidding or have enough IQ to sit at the top. And so most Freemasons are pretty nice people. They just play golf and, do whatever they do. But there are some who are very, very, very powerful. And they're the ones, I guarantee you, that in 20 years or 15 years, Barack Obama will come out and admit that he's a 32-degree Mason, just like Bill Clinton did. And George Bush is a member of the British Freemasons. And so what we're talking about here is that there is this group, and then the question becomes, okay, so what is their motive? And that, I think, is really pretty interesting. And but anyone, I have no doubt, okay, that this is all true. So I'm not a believer. I know it, and I know that these guys are running the world and that they're ruthless beyond belief, and they control everything. We don't even know what we're thinking because they've been controlling our thoughts since we were born. They told us what music to listen to. They told us what books to read. They told us what news to pay attention to, what history to pay attention to, what history not to pay attention to. And so the only way that you can bust free from Illuminati programming is to think asymmetrically. So don't ever do what they want you to do. Do exactly the opposite. And everything they say is a lie. So if they're trashing somebody, that person's probably okay. If they're praising somebody, that person's probably diabolical as hell. So I use that as my template, and I can kind of navigate through these waters and tell who's who and what's what, and it makes it a lot easier. So, I divide a newspaper into sections. You have the front section, which is in national news, and then the second section is local news. The third section is sports, and the fourth section is the business section. And the truth occurs as you get deeper. So the front part of the newspapers are all lies. Locally, you can't lie because you can check it, so they're only partial lies. The sports are probably mostly true because who the hell cares? And then finally, the business part of the newspaper is all true because you don't want to lie to the business community because they'll take it and come get you. So, it's pretty much all lies to a large extent, and anything that's important that they're talking about is probably a lie, and anything that's unimportant is probably the truth.
Jay, I got a question for you. Is it an accident that more and more people are awakening to this type of programming, such as the Illuminati conspiracy and all the other things that we get into when you research the New World Order and Freemasons and whatnot? I mean, is it my imagination, or is it more people waking up? I mean, why is
no, there's no doubt. There's more. It's actually incredible. I mean, 20 years ago, I couldn't even get on a radio show, and now I'm on them constantly. 20 years ago, I would get disinvited from parties. Jay, it's time for you to leave the party. You're scaring the living daylights out of everyone. Now I get invited to parties, and I don't go. But so no, it's happening. It's happening for a number of reasons. One is the internet. Two is people like Freeman and I and a lot of other really courageous people are refusing to back down, which really pisses these guys off. And three is a more kind of a mystical, cosmic reason, and that is that the electromagnetic field of the Earth and the Sun and the solar system has been in a collapse for 20 years. And what that does is the mind seems to become constricted by a high dynamic electromagnetic field, and the mind seems to free up when you're away from these electromagnetic fields. So that's why, like in the King's Chamber in Giza, there's no electromagnetic field at all, and that was probably for the pharaohs and the priests to meditate in there and find out what was really going on. So this field's collapsing. We're waking up. They're scared to death about it, by the way. There's a big new Brzezinski is on the web talking about how the biggest concern for the Illuminati is that we're waking up. And I think we're going to wake up, and I think we're going to go after them. I think that's actually going to happen now. I used to think that it was impossible, but now I actually think it's actually going to happen.
Oh, yeah. People are waking up exponentially, and I've been noticing that myself as well. So I really think that, the Illuminati better kind of watch their step because we're gaining some ground on them.
I say let's not let them off too easy.
Go ahead, Freeman.
No, we really do have to forgive them to get over this. That's true, the only way. I do see that we also are starting to manifest more. We're starting to see the synchronicities more, start to follow this new path of no time, which the Mayans spoke of. And I believe that these Illuminati saw this time coming, knew that the vapors would be lifted and that the veil would be revealed, and so in a counter to that, they started to promote and produce sorcerer-type magic. And so we get all of the Aleister Crowley books, we get all the H.P. Blavatsky's books that we want, and then within the movies, within the structure, Star Wars, Harry Potter, even Beyonce did acts of magic on her stage. They start to promote the concept of sorcery, which is a self-serving magic, self-serving manifestation. And they want to program that into the children now as we start to become more powerful in our manifestations.
Does this,
I agree with that. That's a good analysis, actually.
Does this magic hold weight, guys? I mean, for instance, I used to own some corporations, and I would deal with a lot of extremely wealthy people. I don't think anyone ever on the scale of a non-member or anything like that, but definitely multi-millionaires and whatnot, famous people. And what I tended to notice was these people that are extremely well off are usually very educated people. They usually don't believe in any kind of mumbo jumbo unless it truly is a reality and a fact and actually basically manifests itself. A lot of people like that don't just believe in hocus pocus. So I guess my question is, does this magic they practice hold weight, and does it give them some kind of power?
Well, I would like to correct one thing you said. Yeah, if you've got a couple million or 5 million or 10 million, you're probably not practicing what these guys are doing. But I've known people with $1 billion, and believe me, they're doing it. There's three things that united all of the I've known three extremely rich people in my life, big movers and shakers whose names you would know, and there's three things that united them. A, they never went to college. B, they were all jocks. And C, they were into astrology, alchemy, all the mystical arts. So when you get way up there to billions, these guys are definitely hooked into the occult. In fact, they're really interested in it, and they invite me to talk to them all the time. That's how I know them.
Well, and that's kind of my point too, Jay. I mean, there has to be something behind it if they're into it. I just don't see people, going into something that's not going to work out for them, or something that they're not going to see results in. Do you think they're gaining the results that they want from this occultic magic and alchemy?
Well, I think they're gaining the money from it. I know that, but are they gaining the results that they want? Yeah, I mean, they got us incredibly stupefied. We're a herd of cattle that runs whatever way that they tell us to run, and they've got super advanced technologies, and they're flying around the solar system and acting like that we're still stuck in the rocket age. There's a society that is parallel to our society, and it exists right here, or at least it did exist right here. It may have moved off planet here recently, but we don't know about it. And we have it in our myths that there was these gods and there were these magical beings and all that, but we just believe that they are myths. But really and truly, they really are here. There are people on Earth. They may have gone, but there were people on Earth that could live 200, 300, 400 years easily, and they have fabulous amounts of knowledge and access to things that you can't even begin to dream of, and they've been ruling the planet, and sometimes they were ruling it with benevolence, and recently in the last 6,000 years they've been ruling it with malevolence, and that's because they're trying to get out of here. before the next round of solar flares and things happen. Whether they may happen or not, I don't know, but they believe it. And so, yeah, these guys are practicing dark magic. They're sorcerers. They do it as a matter of rote. They don't, sorcery isn't a guy in a long cloak with stars all over it with a magic wand sitting in front of a cauldron. Sorcery is creating a reality that we believe in, even if it's not real. And that's what they're doing to us. We have been living in a virtual reality for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and that reality is beginning to crumble. The falseness of that reality is beginning to become apparent to everyone who has eyes to see, and that is, to me, a very optimistic thing, because now we have our chance to undo them. Now, Obama's got the kill switch on the internet, and believe me, that's by design, so I don't know how long they're going to let us go. I say frequently when I do these interviews that, there's been other periods of renaissance here on Earth, and they were not very long. And this period here has been going on since about the mid-'60s to late '60s, and it's one of the longest periods of openness, or sort of openness, that we've ever had, and I think I hear the window creaking shut, and I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to say it. Anything, actually.
Hey, if I may, real quick, I'm curious. I haven't heard Freeman pipe in on any of this stuff. Freeman, are you agreeing, or what's your take on all this so far this evening? What we've been discussing?
Well, a lot of the forms of magic that are right in front of us, and we don't even notice. In Egypt, there were two basic forms of magic. One was contracts, and the other was talismans. So now when we look at our world, what do we do but make a contract to create this immortal entity we call a corporation, which has no true existence whatsoever except for the magical contract and the magical signature that made it come into being. So and then our other form of magic brought to us by the Templars and the fiat currency is talismans, which we call dollars or pounds or whatever you want to call it in your nation. And these are, yet again, another form of magic. So these are a couple of forms of magic that are used every day that we don't consider magic any longer. But there is another deeper source in this whole thing, and that is the soul power that goes into all of this. And so what I have learned along the way, and especially when you look deep into Freemasonry, you'll find that the first thing you must do is say that you come of your own free will and accord. They do no promoting. They won't bring you in. You have to join yourself. They say to be one, ask one. That's the motto in Freemasonry. So the other form of magic I see is the soul type of magic, which is the lie that Jay's speaking of, in that they need us to give our free will agreement to their nefarious deeds, such as the movie that was based on Jay's book, Knowing, had the Gulf Coast crisis in there. We see it, we register it into our soul, we accept it because we watched the film and we did not reject it. And or right now, as we see, the whole game plan, of course, is eugenics. And what they need right now is the entire world to agree in our souls that humanity should die. And so then what comes along? A major Gulf oil crisis, and everyone says, oh, humans are horrible. Oh, they're a virus on the planet, as the Matrix tried to tell us. Oh, we all need to die. And we give our free will agreement to that.
But what you're saying is that if we're watching these movies and we're watching these music videos and we're dancing in the clubs to this Luciferian music, even though it's top 40 or blockbuster, we're subconsciously accepting these things that we have happen to us in everyday life in the future. I mean, is that the actual programming that they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, your emotions are very real things, and so when they energize those in a movie theater, that's just as real as it actually occurring to your soul.
That makes a lot of sense with the research I've been doing, and some of it's been with you, on your website, so this is truly good stuff here, guys. I'm really digging this conversation.
Hey, Freeman and Jay, maybe you guys can answer this individually. I'd like to get both your opinions. While we were just now kind of barely talking about the Gulf oil crisis over there, the disaster that's going on or staged event. Freeman, first, what's your opinion? And then Jay, why don't you give us your opinion after and elaborate on Freeman?
Okay, very quickly, we've been watching as we move into this new ecological green world, right? And one of my favorite interviews from Alex Jones when he had the Rothschild on there. He's like, red shield, and the guy was trying to tell him, this is where we're going. The business is going green. Okay, so lo and behold, to move along the green movement, next thing we know, we have this major crisis, and just open the door for everything that they wanted to do, and that much to us is all obvious. I lost where I was going.
Oh, the goal.
I was thinking of Elon Musk, because they prepare a hero for us. Each time they have the hero and the villain ready to go. And so as I've been watching this rise of Elon Musk after he sold PayPal and started Tesla Motors and SpaceX and saying that he's the new green man coming up out of his garage with Tesla Motors. Toyota just gave him $50 million for his electronic cars. Iridium Satellites just gave him $492 million for his SpaceX Dragon. And we look at his SpaceX Dragon, okay? It's a Dragon craft launched on a Falcon vehicle with Merlin engines. So if you guys know anything about ancient occult stories, the Dragon, the Falcon, and the Merlin ought to all fit in there. So you should see where he's coming from. But they play up this hero as if he were Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, or whatever. Like they did this in their garage, like they were just the right ones ready to be there when things went awry, as if every person that came out with a water engine or electric engine didn't just suddenly die. But here's Elon Musk, to come save the day. So, it's just another movement in the stage play. Really, when you realize that these guys are Shakespearean authors and just crafting the story so that we follow, then it all becomes very simple. But you always have to flip everything on its head. I got to just throw that out one more time, because they want you angry, right? They want you angry so that you'll do the wrong thing, so that you'll react in an aggressive manner. And so they put this out here, just like when W was forced into office, they told us, Jeb Bush was in charge of Florida, and that's why he got into the election. Well, that wasn't the case. I predicted W being forced into office because of the occult meaning of his letter, W. And I watched the whole thing play out, and you can see that I predicted that. As I predicted, Obama wouldn't be a natural-born citizen, because it's just a play that they're unfolding before us to bring about their agenda. But they want you angry, so they'll give you Jeb Bush. But really, the conspiracy is way beyond a Bushian coup when you're talking about that. And you can take that to everything. You got to step it one more time.
Jay, what are your thoughts on the Gulf oil spill, and does it tie into the Illuminati's agenda?
Yeah, I think they're definitely the fact that it happened on Hitler's birthday, and they were drilling exactly 120 degrees west of Giza, and one tetrahedral point away from Giza. They were doing a lot of strange things, and weird things were going on, and the CIA was going to the thing, and the SWAT teams were called in, and Schlumberger was a big company, and they quit like 8 hours before it blew. There's a lot of strange things when you start looking at the whole Gulf oil blowout, and they do want us down to 500 million or even less, of which, by the way, about 450 million will be slaves, I might add. So if you think you're lucky enough to survive, you'll probably end up just being a slave. So, one of the things that they have to do, of course, to kill us is if there's a lot of seafood, then, that's going to be difficult to starve us out. And so, I mean, we don't realize how much seafood we get out of the Gulf, but it's a huge amount, about half of what we eat. And so I think they're trying to kill us, and yeah, I agree with Freeman. I think that these idiots, excuse the word, but I was in Germany last year and showing my film 2012, and they all came up to me talking about the Georgia Guidestones, which is at the end of the film, and they were going, "Oh, that is such a good idea." I said, "What? What's a good idea?" To eliminate, get the population down to 500 million. To which I said, "Well, you know what I say about that? Depopulation starts with you. So, if you're for a depopulated world, go jump off a building or something," because these people actually think it's a good thing. And most liberal people of liberal persuasion that I know think that 500 million people is just about right. But I don't buy for a second that the Earth is even overpopulated. I mean, why should I believe their spinmeisters, who Paul Ehrlich is, and all the people that are telling us that the Earth is overpopulated are all Masons and all part of the Illuminati. So why should I believe anything they say? And I don't. So I don't believe the Earth is overpopulated. I think there is definitely a resource problem on Earth where some people have too much and some people don't have enough, and that kind of thing. But no, I don't believe any of it. I believe they do want us to voluntarily. There's something about what they're doing where there's two things that are very odd about the Illuminati. One is that for some reason they have to tell us everything they're doing. They're not how. It doesn't say how they have to tell us, but they have to tell us. And the second thing is we have to agree. We have to agree to whatever it is. They can't just willy-nilly go into Afghanistan and Iraq. We must agree that that's what we have to do. It's really strange. So, they're telling us everything they're doing, but they're doing it through symbolic motifs of which most people might as well be a language from another galaxy. And so yes, they're telling us. They got the murals at Denver Airport. They got the Georgia Guidestones. They got the Cross of Henday. They got the movies, Knowing, and all these other things. And so they're telling us directly to our face, for those of us who can see, that they're going to eliminate us, that they're going to get rid of us, and we're running around trying to tell everybody what's happening, and their people's own desire to fulfill this death wish is going to make it happen. And the religions are the same thing. Fundamentalist Christians want everyone to die. You look at all this. And you just say, wow, everybody's just being led right to the slaughter. Now, we are waking up, so...
And I got a question for you, something that was going on in my city.
Jeff, we're going to have to go to a break. We'll talk about it on the other side, and maybe we'll get into the Georgia Guidestones a little bit, too. Hold that thought, Jeff. We're back. You're listening to the Decompression session. It's June 27th, 2010. We're joined by Freeman and Jay Weidner. Or Jay Weidner, I'm sorry. This is a very interesting show. Jeff, I know you had a question before the break. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, listen, guys, I've noticed a lot of chemtrailing going on in my neighborhood, and I live in Toledo, Ohio, right on the Maumee River, the port of the world, which is not doing much business these days, by the way. And I can count several days, let's just say since spring started, where I have woke up every morning and pulled out of my driveway around 11 in the morning and seen an anarchy sign sprayed in the direction of, like, right over the sun. An anarchy sign in chemtrails right over the sun, plain as day, and I can never get a picture of it, of course, because it's over the sun. Also, in the evening hours around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, I would see Roman numerals miles high, sprayed in chemtrails. You guys make sense of any of that with all this symbolization going on and all these secret symbols and whatnot?
Well, I would personally think that might be some sort of satellite targeting if they were actually putting signs and symbols. I have seen words written in chemtrails that shouldn't have been there. Very strange. It wasn't even, it wasn't just a plane. It was a chemtrail. We're starting to see 4 or 5 planes in unison now flying with trails, and this is obviously not passenger liners. When we start to look to the chemtrail conspiracy, and of course I've been talking about this since 1996, I think, maybe 98, that it's been going on for so long. Obviously, it's not a death project. We've been watching these things for over a decade. But when we start to look deeper into it, you find out that they were chemtrailing in the Middle East during the first Gulf War, and that they would say that they were feeding barium to the insurgents to track them. This is the very same thing going on with us. So as we breathe in the 2 major elements in the chemtrails, which is aluminum and barium, we become actually visible on radar. So as far as the signs and symbols in the sky, I'm not sure, but the method or the reason for the chemtrails, as I have deciphered so far, is that the barium makes us show up on the X-band radar. And that is a giant ball X-ray that was sent on a oil rig right before Katrina, left out of Texas, went all the way down around South America and up to position itself next to Alaska, next to the HAARP facility, which is the other portion of this. So with the aluminum, we are then antennas that will be used with these ultra-low radio frequency wave antenna transmitters such as HAARP, IceCat, Sura, and all the others across the globe to manipulate our very emotions, morality, feelings, health, all of the things that they can do with those electromagnetic frequencies, because now we are antennas. So actually the latest report I just got from Alaska news source is about the NORAD and the FBI conducting an exercise to keep America's skies safe. They were saying, since the failure of 9/11, we want to make sure there are no more air terrorists. So now all of a sudden they're putting all their efforts over Alaska, over Anchorage. And how curious is that? Because this is the one device that we probably would need to take out, is the HAARP facility there.
Jay, any thoughts on chemtrails?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that the chemtrails are being used within HAARP. I'm not sure. Probably there is this antenna effect because they like to get a number of different things going on with every experiment. I think that one of the things that the chemtrails are doing, though, is dampening. It's like a dampening effect, so they can use their hyperdimensional weapons and do tests and things. So and that's also with HAARP. So what they're doing is they're creating torsion effects, and these are like electromagnetic tornadoes. This is what, for instance, blew up that bridge in China, and the powers that be are experimenting with these weapons that are so incredible that they could blow the entire Earth up. In fact, it may have been used in the past to blow planets up. So I have to say, though, I don't know if this is happening anywhere else, but where I'm from, ever since the Gulf oil spill, I've noticed a general diminishing of chemtrails in my area. So I don't know if it's happening everywhere.
You want to know why that is, Jay? I'll tell you right now. The company that handles spraying chemtrails, or one of them, it's a CIA front company known as Evergreen Air. We've proven that here by witness testimony, interviews we've done with ex-workers from the facility, and the Intel Hub came to the conclusion that without a shadow of a doubt, Evergreen Air is a CIA chemtrail front company. Well, it just so happens they have the contract to spray the Corexit all over the Gulf, and it also just so happens they're doing that by the cover of night, and some of the Corexit is reaching into people's backyards, falling down onto them. Theoretically, they're depopulating people. But that, in my best opinion, and you're not the first one to say that, I've noticed that here, and I've had about 5 or 10 other emails on that same subject ever since the Gulf oil spill has happened. So I think that some of their resources with the sprayer planes are diverted to the Gulf right now.
Well, good. I don't mean good. I'm sick and tired of those chemtrails. They ruin my day every day.
Yeah, and what you guys are talking about, the antennas, I mean, A.C. Griff is one of the only people to ever make it out of a chemtrail program, NSA chemtrail program at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He made it into it, and he made it out of it. We interviewed him several times, and he says that the chemtrails are really not primarily a depopulation. They're not used for depopulation primarily. They're used to aid scalar technology, which is that tracking system. It allows them to map everything in a three-dimensional pattern over the land terrain using the barium and the aluminum salt, so they can get an actual 3D mapping of the battlefield. We've also found patents that go into HAARP that are just mind-blowing. There's patents under the HAARP facility's parent company's name. I forget what that company is right now. I think it's ARCO, and there's even one more. It's like a 3-letter name. There's patents for nuclear-sized explosions in the atmosphere without a nuclear device.
Let me address that, because one thing that many people missed with the Norway spiral, obviously we're all familiar with the Norway spiral.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, one thing that many people missed, and I was tracking, because I've been doing space war news since Barack Obama came into office, and I knew space war was the next major platform, and that they would use asteroids, because Werner von Braun, the Nazi scientist who brought us the V2, said they would. And very simply, using his outline, I said, hey, well, the next threat is asteroids. Next thing we know, we have an asteroid hurtling towards our planet, right, on March 2nd, I think, of 2009, and that announced the coming of Apophis. Well, that's one part of the puzzle, but the other part of the puzzle was back in 1999, December of 99, there was a meteor that flew directly over the HARP facility and exploded in the atmosphere, causing a sonic boom with an earthquake that followed 3 hours later. So I started tracking those because this was completely unusual. The people of Anchorage thought it was the end of the world. They're all running to their basements trying to survive. I started questioning, could they hurl meteors at our own planet? Well, then, all of a sudden, especially this year and last year, fireball after fireball coming into our atmosphere, coming down. One just came over Wisconsin, lit up 3 states, sonic boom, earthquake. There was many more that I've tracked, Mississippi, and just you can see them all in my Space War news, until the point that the military came out and said, we are now classifying incoming bolides. Okay, but what I realized was that these were most likely technology, not meteors, because every single one of these that I tracked, not a single meteorologist or anyone involved, astronomers, could find a rock. There was never an impact, there was never a rock, just these sonic booms and earthquakes with the large fireball. Well, so we got a kind of a clue when they launched from the Wallops Flight Facility, which is also known as Mars, which is right there on the Virginia beach, and they launched the rockets out of there. Actually, they launched the X-37. No, I'm getting lost in all my Space War vehicles now, but let's just get to where we were at. They launched what they called the Cloud of Care, and you could have watched this launch live on my website. It was announced, everyone knew about it, at least we did, and it came to me through California Skywatch, which is a chemtrail skywatchers in California. Rosalind Peterson, great lady. Anyway, so as I start tracking and watch this live launch, which was the Cloud of Care, which stood for the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment, they launched this thing up into the sky. It exploded a large aluminum oxide cloud into the upper atmosphere, about 173, 183 miles up into the sky, which is just about the same orbit as the space station. And it seemed to cause a giant vortex to open up in the sky. A blue beam came spiraling out of it, and then it closed back up. And the news all went down there, and you can watch the news clips on Freeman TV. They came down, and they were like, well, we don't know what this is. No one knows what it is. We think it's an alien invasion. All of the people they interviewed were like, yeah, I think it's aliens. I think it's aliens. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? You could have watched the launch live on my website. What do you mean you don't know anything? You're the news. Well, so we watched that occur. We watched what had happened, and then next thing we know, over the Nobel Peace Prize, a giant spiral opens over Norway. Same thing, though. It looks just like a rocket going out of control, spiraling, although I think it was a controlled out of control, so that they would emit the aluminum oxide out of the side of the rocket, causing it to spiral, and then zap that with the iSCAT, which was the antenna array in Norway that was facing this spiral, and turn it into a large fireball. Now, the reasons I know it was aluminum oxide, one, because
spirals turn. I had a guy on Nori the other night saying that, reverting back to the rocket story where these new stage boosters are breaking off into the atmosphere, and due to the fuel release that they didn't have before, that's what's causing these spirals. I mean, that's the story that most of the I'll say it.
See, we know it's aluminum oxide because of the blue spiral that came out of it. Dr. Dimple, who's a lead aerospace scientist, was showing us that is aluminum oxide, which is the base element of sapphires, and that's why it comes out blue. That's what the blue spiral was. So we know that it was an aluminum oxide cloud. We have no doubts about that. Now, the funny thing about the spiral was when everybody said, oh, it was just a Russian ICBM. Oh, okay. They launched a Russian ICBM over the president getting the Peace Prize. That's okay, as long as it's not some aliens coming in with a vortex, right?
Jay, what's your thoughts on that spiral?
Well, I have a slightly different take. One of the things is that that missile was apparently captured in that spiral. I agree that it was strange enough that Putin would choose that moment to do a rocket test, and it was definitely trying to do a my pee-pee is bigger than your thing with Obama. And Obama's getting the Peace Prize for what I could not figure out. And so I think there's a third party here, which I think is the Illuminati, and they're not of our government, but they control our government, and they're not of the Russian government, but they control the Russian government. And I think it was actually done by them as a message to both Obama and Putin that neither one of you guys are in charge, and we're in charge. And if you screw with us, we'll do it again and again and again. So I think that these are torsion weapons that they're working with, and these are very, very dangerous weapons. And I'm not convinced that these guys know what they're doing. Hopefully they do. They studied their alchemy. But when I see them, I'm not real impressed with their integrity or anything. So I don't know. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I do know there's a lot of stuff going on. I have a really good pair of night vision goggles, and I go out at sunset every night, and the sky is filled with objects that you cannot see with your naked eye. And they're doing all sorts of crazy things, and it could all be Earth-based. I'm not saying it isn't, but from what I can see, and from what I know, and from what I know from my alchemical studies, this group of people is so much further advanced than us that we can't even begin to conceive of what they have, and so it gets difficult to actually analyze a lot of what they're doing because we don't really know how far advanced they are. If they did break into a cache of like we suspect of information somehow from people in the past who possessed all of this information and stored it away, then they could be 1,000 years beyond us at this point. In only a few years.
Absolutely, and a lot of people in Black Project have alluded that they are thousands of years ahead. There's known government craft such as TR-3Bs, all sorts of space-based weapons platforms. According to John Lear, there's 36 space-based weapons platforms. There's space-based weapon platforms such as rods from God. All sorts of stuff. Freeman, what do you know about space-based weapons?
Well, I definitely knew that it was going to be the height of this, that NASA would be shot down, that SpaceX would rise. I predicted all of this before Obama came out and said, because it was obvious. It was so obvious. NASA was already interacting with the Dragon. But so now they've launched the Flying Twinkie, the X-37B, this robotic space shuttle that's orbiting us. There's 3 other robotic Falcon vehicles that they are also launching up with the HTV-2, the hypersonic technology vehicle, which seemed to have failed when they attempted its launch. And they launched both those on the same day. I think that was the 22nd. On a Thursday, they launched both the X-37B and the HTV-2 at the same time. Now they're putting up what's known as the Space-Based Surveillance System. That's very interesting. I'm not sure that'll be going up in July. We'll see where that goes. While they launch, now here's another curious, symbolic gesture. NASA rearranged their launches so that Launch 133 comes after Launch 134, making 133 the last launch. So 134 will be launching up here, I think, in July as well, and it will be launching what's known as the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer up to the ISS, or what I call the ISIS, and this is seeking dark matter. Now, this has been a very dark story as it's been going and unfolding. As you look into the symbolism again, there's the Rick, the relativistic heavy ionospheric collider in America, which is basically our CERN, only smaller. And their colliders are known as Phoenix and Star, which are very pertinent to people within the order of the OTO. You'll know that these are both the secret names of Aleister Crowley, but also just in the alchemical way, the Phoenix and the Star. As CERN's logo is 666, but their colliders are known as Atlas and Alice, of course, the king of Atlantis. So we find this secret brotherhood always encoding all of these things. Now the Vatican has joined in with CERN, and they're coupling with the alpha magnetic spectrometer. They're bringing in Jesuit priests to try and find the God particle. And with this, this is the same Jesuit priest, Benjamin Funes, who announced to the world that aliens are real, there are space brothers, and that they didn't suffer original sin because they weren't born of Eve. And this is the man who joined with CERN to get in there and seek the God particle with his other Jesuit, Gabriel Giante. So then the final piece of the puzzle, as our Terminator salvation comes together, they're sending up Robonaut 2, or R2, up to the ISS on the last space shuttle, 133. So pretty soon we'll have a full robotic system up in there, along with all of the robotic Falcons that they're launching around, which are stealth. I mean, who's thinking when you launch a robotic stealth vehicle? That's just stupid, right? But that's where everything is leading at this point in the front lines and what we know about. Now, I have had a large V-shaped craft fly over my car, and I saw the large anti-gravity plasma balls holding it in the air. So I know about that side of it as well.
Absolutely. I myself have seen some pretty wild stuff, and I've had witnesses with me every single time. There's several occasions. I mean, on one occasion I saw a massive craft in Washington State. I would estimate it to be between 1/2 mile and 1 mile in diameter, and it was only about 300 to 500 feet away from me. I stopped my car, and it took it quite a while to feed itself over the road because it was so massive I couldn't see either end of it. It was pretty impressive, and so I know what you're talking about.
Well, let's just say that NASA is openly talking about gravity tractors to save us from Apophis, so that's like a tractor beam, and they're openly talking about space elevators. They awarded a prize, so there's a lot of things way beyond what we think.
Jay, what's your take on UFOs and space weapons?
Well, I mean, I don't think. I think NASA was a very important agency until about 1992, about the same time that Clinton came into office. When that happened, you saw the old guard begin going away. They were old by then, but all the people that created NASA and all the German scientists and things started leaving. They were in their 60s and 70s, and a new guard came in. And I think the new guard the old guard, of course, didn't tell the new guard what they were really doing. And so I think since 1992, NASA, well, for one thing, has just turned into a completely ridiculous agency, and they seem to be playing catch up. They seem to be constantly trying to find out what the previous guys were doing, as if they don't know what they were doing, and I don't think they do. And so I guarantee you they're not going to build the space elevators or any of that, because NASA is going to be defunct. They don't need it anymore. They have a whole secret space program with hundreds of vehicles. This is why they want Gary McKinnon here, because instead of being in England, so they can make sure that he doesn't talk. He's already said too much from his hack job into the Pentagon. And I've been told by very high up people that we have bases on Mars, and we have incredible platforms out in space where there's all these transferings going on. When I look through my night vision goggles, there's a diamond-shaped craft that comes in almost at the same exact time every night, and then another craft comes up and docks with it, and then goes back down, and the diamond craft disappears, and And I'm seeing all this, and I'm pretty much, I was writing a book in the early 90s about NASA, and I was working with Richard Hoagland at the time, and he had dirtied his name up so bad that no one in NASA would talk to him. So I kind of was the one they would talk to because I didn't have a bad reputation. And so I was talking to a lot of the people that were running the Apollo program. I'm the guy who found Ken Johnston, the whistleblower that Hoagland touts all the time. And these guys told me things that, I didn't believe at the time. I thought that they were lying to me. And they were telling me that, that they'd gone to Mars in 1959, and they'd gone to the moon in the 50s before that, and they had these super craft that were using torsion physics to zip around, and that, and I didn't know what to say. I don't believe this. And then Joseph Farrell did all of his great work here recently in the last, say, 10 years on the Nazis, and we now know that they were deeply embedded into this torsion physics and red mercury and high spin states. And so I think these guys are like so far advanced that NASA's like a buggy, a horse and buggy compared to a Lamborghini, and they're just scratching their head. They're not lying. I really don't believe NASA's lying when they say they don't know what's going on. I don't think they do know what's going on. I think that they're more surprised than anybody by what they keep finding. And the other thing with these guys is they're locked into a mindset where even when they look at something, they can't see it for what it is because their mindset refuses to let them believe it. So they can look at the European Space Agency's pictures of Phobos, and they don't see a grid pattern on Phobos. But it's apparent to anyone who's an engineering student or a shipbuilder or knows how to build high-rise construction. It's obvious that Phobos has a grid pattern built into it, and so the odd orbit and everything else leads me to conclude beyond any shadow of a doubt that Phobos is artificial. And all you need to do is get to Phobos. You don't need to go to Mars or anywhere else. If you can get to Phobos, drill into there, you can start back engineering everything. So assuming that NASA, these guys in NASA in the 90s weren't lying to me, and that they really did go all that way, and they do have these super weapons, I believe that they are now nearly approaching godlike status in what they can do, but they're still humans and they're still psychopaths, and that's really scary. And there's also, when I look through these night vision goggles, there's some kind of war going on up there. It may be test war, it may not be a real war, it may just be a fake war that they're doing just to test weapons, but still there are things going on and beams being shot and all sorts of crazy stuff. And so that leads me to believe that either we are living on a prison planet and these are the guards, which could very well be true, by the way, or a number of humans have advanced way beyond us, and they're the aliens. They're the ones who are expanding out into space, conquering Mars. And every time I get on a show, I tell everybody to Google in Hale Crater Civilization and look at Joseph Skipper's work. That photograph that he examines on that site, it was secretly given to him from somebody deep in the European Space Agency. So there's somebody in the ESA who is trying to subvert the dominant paradigm. It's getting quite clear. I don't know who it is, if it's just a worker or a leader or somebody, but they're taking pictures of Phobos at the right exact angle and light angle to see the shadows of the grid pattern of the infrastructure of Phobos. They're sending Joseph Skipper the number of the photograph to get and where to look on the image so that he can see this colony that's on Mars, which is obvious. It's like flying over Nebraska, It's like you obviously see farm fields and roads and buildings and shadows and when you look at Hoagland's work about Mars, where they're coloring the images so that it makes it look like Mars has a red sky, and Hoagland has proven with his work on the blueberry thing that's BS. The skies of Mars are blue, and so when we see all this, I think it blows apart everything that we know, and we have to start thinking, in a different way here. These guys are super advanced. They have a secret space agency. They've got super weapons, and they probably will lob an asteroid at us or whatever those things are that keep flying around. I have no doubt they probably have a mass driver that they could shoot an asteroid in, but they don't need to because they have these torsion weapons, and which is the great alchemical secret. And so I know at this stage of the game, the best thing we can do is try to expose everything that's going on as fast as possible before the window is shut on our fingers.
Very well put. Very interesting. We're joined today by Jay Weidner, jweidner.com, and Freeman, freemantv.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about dual astronaut program, the moon, the whole 9 yards. You're listening to the Decompression Session with Shepard and Jeff. Tonight we're joined by Jay Weidner, jweidner.com, and Freeman from freemantv.com. It's a pleasure to have both of you guys on the show, especially at the same time. I mean, this is great, guys. I was thinking I'm going to turn this loose to Jeff, but maybe now is the time to get into the moon a little bit. A lot of interesting things surrounding the moon. David Icke's been talking about the moon, John Lear. Also, I noticed on Jay's website, there's a lot of information about the moon landings. Jeff, why don't you take over?
Well, I've always been fascinated by the moon, and it's like this, guys. We've had crazy news about the moon for the past years. One of the big reports for the moon this year was that we launched a kinetic weapon that blew a humongous hole in it, which most guys up your alley are saying never happened. And I'm still always looking for evidence to prove that the lunar landing never happened. Can you guys separately give us your opinions on that?
Well, the lunar landings didn't happen, but they have gone to the moon. They just didn't go the way we went. They can't take a horse and buggy to the moon. It's impossible. You can get to the moon. It's getting from the orbit of the moon to the surface and back. That is the hard part. All the rest, they did 6 times according to their records without a glitch, which anyone who's ever worked in technology knows that is just pure BS. Nothing works right the first time ever, let alone 6 first times. So they never went that way, but they did go, and they've been there a while. And from that recent photograph by the amateur astronomer of the dome over Aristarchus would seem to indicate, especially with the lunar transient phenomena report that NASA produced in the 60s, that there's been activity on the moon for at least 400 years, at least since Galileo, who was really the first to report strange things going on the moon. So the moon is actually, just to let you know straight out, I mean, I probably could have caused a lot of controversy here. The moon is artificial. It's hollow. I mean, not artificial. It was actually an asteroid or something that was hollowed out and used as a spaceship, and it's here, and there would be no life on the land if there wasn't a moon because of the tides and everything. So I think that the moon came to Earth a long time ago, driven by intelligent people, maybe by the people we call the ancient Egyptians or somebody. I don't know. I know this.
Let me stop right there. I'd like to stop you right there, Jay. Freeman, your take on that?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that Jay and I would agree on this, that I believe that when the major catastrophe happened in the solar system, and be it the Venus came into our solar system and collided, or Planet X, I don't know which to believe in, but the Venus one seems to fit. But absolutely we have this evidence of a massive catastrophe that occurred in our solar system. And this seemed to have taken a chunk out of planet Earth, if you believe Sitchin's descriptions of Nibiru with its 4 moons coming in and hitting and striking planet Earth. And this would be our Pacific Basin, so if we actually moved the moon and the water all changed its place, we would see this giant crater missing out of the side of the planet. But the Earth keeps it, or the moon keeps it round. I believe the moon was positioned there for just this purpose, to stabilize the wobbling hump that had been destroyed. I sometimes question if it was the moon Iapetus, that's Richard Hoagland has also brought to all of our attention, with looking identical to the Death Star, if that was not perhaps an ancient weapon that they used to destroy the planet and then had to move this moon in. But certainly when they did launch the rocket into the moon, what they called the bombing of the moon, which of course was not a bomb, my first theory and thoughts on all of that was that they were trying to see inside, very much like they show on Jurassic Park, where they strike the ground and then they can see the dinosaur in the ground. Same thing. Strike the moon, rings out like a gong, as they have reported, and then you can get tomography and see inside. Now, very similar with Phobos and Deimos, as when no one had seen moons of Mars until 1877. It was only at that point when they were first spotted, and then everyone could see them. But we've been looking at at Mars for 100 years through telescopes before this. And all of a sudden, these moons show up in 1877, which is the same year they put Cleopatra's Needle on the Thames, same year I think they started the District of Columbia. So yes, I do firmly believe in this false moon theory, and that that they're hollow, and that they were trying to see inside both, because we know that was the goal with Phobos as they brought the rover around. And it was, I thought, very curious that they did a silent running as they orbited and came in on Phobos, as if they didn't want anyone inside to know they were scanning, because 6 satellites now have been lost to Phobos.
Yep, I agree completely.
I claimed that the moon is basically a massive transmitter to keep the population on Earth under control, as it's some sort of artificial object or hollowed out object. Jay, do you agree with that statement?
Not really. I think is going on. You see, the Earth we all know the Earth has this gigantic magnetic field. And what I think that the purpose of the moon is actually to act as a governor on the magnetic field. And that is to keep it cohesive so that life could form. In other words, I think that, it's part of a ancient sort of terraforming project, and that it's being used, because if the magnetic field can vary wildly, but if you have this governor on there and you can keep it cohesive, then you can give enough time for life to manifest. And so I think that, I actually think that the solar system was terraformed, and there was three planets, of course, the Earth and Mars and Tiamat, which is the exploded asteroid belt, which was blown up by a torsion weapon, I believe. And this was done by aliens or somebody from off planet. I don't know who it was. The Freemasons say it's Assyrians, so I don't know who it was. But they came here and they terraformed and genetically created us. And then the solar system got cracked by the Great War or the disaster or whatever it is that blew up the fifth planet, and threw the physics of the solar system completely out of whack, which is what's going on right now. And we've lost all of the harmonic structure that was originally in the solar system, and until we get that back, and I have no idea how we're going to get that back with all the asteroids bouncing around, we're going to be in a very, very bad place. And I think that if you want to do something really interesting, Google in Hoagland, I think it's Leeds, the town in England, Leeds, Leeds, Saturn, and somebody took a video, I think, with a phone camera of Hoagland's lecture there. It's about 20 minutes on the web, and Hoagland's not very happy about this. And in this lecture, in this 20 minutes, he completely spills the beans about Saturn. And it's something that he and I have been working on for about 20 years. And I definitely ask all of you to go do that, because it's very, very interesting. Even though it's a horrible camera and the sound is terrible, you can, if you're smart, you can figure out what he's trying to tell you. And I think that Iapetus is all part of this, which is why Arthur C. Clarke included Iapetus as the place where the monolith is found in the book 2001: A Space Odyssey. And so we can start looking at all this, and we realize that the myths are real, and that the names of things were named by people many years ago, and we can begin seeing. So when you look at the moon, you can start figuring things out by the names of craters and things. I mean, there's hexagonal craters on the moon. I've seen them. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So, what does that mean? How can there be a hexagonal crater? There's hexagonal craters on Iapetus. How can that be? And I think when you get the answer to that, you begin figuring out that what's happening is the substructure is being revealed from the constant bombardment.
Now, you say that, Jay, that, we haven't made it to the moon with horse and buggy technology. I saw a clip on mainstream media where Bush authorized what's known as a forward moon base. Do you think that is true, that they have a moon base? And if so, how do you think they're traveling to back and forth from the moon?
No, they're using flying saucers, which is torsion-based physics.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating a huge, Paul LaViolette's work on gravitics is a really good place to start if you want to understand this. And they're just spinning electromagnetic fields and creating torsion, and they're able to go there in just a few minutes, is what I was told years ago, and they can get there in like 17 minutes. And so that erases all the problems that you have with radiation and the Van Allen belts and all that stuff. And yeah, I think there's bases on the moon. I pretty much know there's bases on the moon. And that explosion that they did at the South Pole definitely was to find out, to blow a hole in the moon, to hear so they could map and find out where the hollow areas are. They're trying to get down in there. They're trying to back engineer all this stuff. That's been the entire project. That's where all our money's been going. That's where everything has been going. It's a gigantic the entire purpose of NASA was to go out into the solar system and find evidence of past civilizations. That was what they were doing. Nothing else.
Freeman, or go ahead, Jeff.
I'm curious. We've had a lot of guests, so we do talk a lot about the moon on this show lately. I mean, how many Americans or how many people on the Earth are aware of the true knowledge of, this super race that seems to be running things? I mean, how many people on this planet really know what the hell's going on with just everything we're talking about here tonight?
I don't think anybody does everything. Things are much stranger than they seem. I live on a planet where our president is a clone of an ancient pharaoh.
Yep.
And so my life already is just in a strange place. And I personally had been given some sort of message at 10 years old where I drew a picture, and on that picture I had the space shuttles fighting a flying serpent, and in between some strange vortex. I couldn't tell what it was, honestly. I didn't know what any of the things were, except for, space shuttle in my pictures. And I had put this strange symbol on each of those space shuttles, and you can look at this picture, it's on my website. And the symbol turned out to be the Dogon symbol for Sirius. And I didn't know this at the time. I was 10 years old. I'd never seen, even though, the Sirius mystery was published, I think, about 6 months before I drew the picture. But, of course, I was 10. I didn't read Robert K. Temple yet. But I read it when I was 28. And I was like, oh, my God. I grabbed the book or grabbed my picture. I see that the symbols are identical. I feel like I'm getting this message that I have something to tell the world. Well, as I go through a little bit further, I find that, all the Syrian connections, obviously, like Jay was saying, the Freemasons worship Sirius. It's their blazing star. That's why the Sirius star in Yemen, or the fact that in Egypt the symbol for Sirius is an obelisk, a dome, and a pentagram, which is in every nation or every capital plus all the city-states. They venerate this very nation, this star, Sirius. So I started to get a piece of the puzzle together. Next thing I know, I'm watching David Sereda, and he's discussing hyperdimensional physics using the spiral that he had deciphered from a craft that the Columbia Space Shuttle filmed in that famous tether experiment. And we see these crazy 2 to 3 mile long craft that look like some sort of life form going around, and there's, hundreds of them. He took that, believed this to be a craft, used it, compared it to the Dropa stone of China, which showed a history of people from Sirius in a spiral in the stone that was just like this. Well, that was the exact same thing I had in the middle of my picture. I can take that very craft and put it right in the picture, and it's identical. It's blowing my mind, as if I have this story unfolding before me and that I've been given clues to. Now I've gone along and said, okay, if all of this be true, if there were ancient astronauts, if there were civilizations from another solar system that have come to planet Earth, as we believe, as we see in all of the ancient structures, we know in the 21st century we can't build Baalbek, Lebanon. We would never put the precision that they did into the Great Pyramids now. You know, the things that they did in the ancient past, we can't compare with. So we know there was high technology in the ancient past. There's just no doubts about that. 33 angles on the pyramids in Peru, you know, things of this nature. We see that these structures are obviously some sort of machinery, a device, because they are built so precisely and using gold and mica and oil and gases, just as all the things that are in our computer, quartz crystals, mica, subterranean gases, gold and silver, all the same things in the pyramids. So we can see structures that were actually giant Earth-sized computers. So I take that theory and I take that idea and I project it forward. If this is all true, then what else is true? And obviously mummification, I'm going to go ahead and jump to the Barak thing, saves a viable cell for cloning. They showed us this clearly in their Day After People expose, showing that the only two ways aliens could bring life back on planet Earth after a major catastrophe were cryogenically frozen people and mummies, because the act of mummification saves a viable cell. Now we have Anubis, who is the god of mummification, standing out in front of the Denver International Airport. Now that's got everybody freaked out. But when you start to take this as a reality, okay, this is all real, everything's real, then you'll find even 33rd degree Manly P. Hall, head of the Philosophical Research Society, saying that Akhenaten was born 2,000 years too early. He's the great Democrat. He is the man they want in power. And next thing we know, lo and behold, here come the entire family of Akhenaten showing up as the first family of America. Once you take it all in, once you realize that there is this ancient past, there are the high technologies, they can clone mummies, and the fact that now our entire first family are identical to the Akhenaten's family, being Queen T, his mother, Akhenaten, and his two daughters, Merit Aten, and the other daughter, I can't find her name. So when we start to take it to the level where we're actually at right now, and there's House Judiciary Resolution number 5 that's going to eliminate, or could eliminate, the 22nd Amendment, which is the terms of presidency. So all of a sudden now we could have a mortal entity, emperor, in our president's seat. We have a clone in office, and CERN has a computer grid, the LHC grid, which is absolutely capable of mind cloning technology. You know, you go back to Phoenix Pictures, and there's Schwarzenegger's Sixth Day, and they have the SIM core. They take the mental projection, they put it in the clone, and they live forever. This is another thing this brotherhood has always known, because when Cortez came, when Pizarro came, when all of them came, they had on their charter to find the fountain of youth. So what we find, as Jay has found in the ancient scripts, they have knowledge that show them these things are possible, and then now we're actually seeing them come to fruition.
Do you think that'll ever be brought to light, not the cloning, but that our new benevolent leader will soon become a tyrannical deity over the world? If you're right.
Well, I think you would just know it. I mean, I don't know if it's going to come to light, but you'd be under his thumb. There's no doubt about that.
Talk about a decompression session, guys. This is incredible, and I invite everybody to go to these gentlemen's websites, FreemanTV.com and JWeidner.com.
One other piece of that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. One other piece was that with this mind transfer technology, like the Blue Brain Project, you can go look into it. You can find out that it's totally possible that people are doing it. And when you start to look into things like ISCAT, the Norway ionospheric heater, or ultra-low radio frequency wave antenna, shot a Dorito commercial to Alpha Centauri, or to Ursa Major, whereas they also simulcast The Day the Earth Stood Still to Alpha Centauri. Now that, to me, is scary. They sent a movie to the closest known inhabited solar system, showing them that we are completely destructive and need to be destroyed. If you read into the story of The Day the Earth Stood Still, it is that humans will never change, might as well wipe us out. And they simulcast that movie to Alpha Centauri. And they also sent a Dorito commercial through iScat up to Ursa Major. When you take mind control technology, or mind transfer technology, and then you can also transmit this mind to another solar system, this is another entirely new way of travel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fascinating. They're just broadcasting things to other, who knows, life forms or solar systems. Absolutely scary if you think about it. Getting back to the moon real quick, and then we'll move on to another topic. Jay, if we didn't really land on the moon during the Apollo missions, how did they fake the footage, and who was involved?
Well, Stanley Kubrick directed it. He directed it in England. He had 2 different stages that he had rented, and he shot everything at the, not Pinewood, and it's completely escaping me now, the first stage, which has now been torn down. And he used a system called front screen projection, which is in my article, How Stanley Kubrick Faked the Moon Landings. And he did a very good job, and there's no doubt the signature. I've talked to Hollywood people that used to use front screen projection, and they said they read my article. They said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I've been looking at these Apollo pictures for 40 years or 40 years, and I never saw the telltale signature of front screen projection." And that's what they're doing, and they did it, and they hired Stanley to do it because he was the chief film director and technician of his time, and maybe even of the future. He was so advanced. So they did that, and they faked it. And then he told his own personal story, I believe, in The Shining. And there's a lot more I've got coming out about Stanley Kubrick, but I have to hold that because it is so unbelievable and it goes in everything we're talking about, by the way, everything. He was trying to tell us all of this stuff in his films, but he had to do it very secretly because he was being heavily watched by the powers that be, and he did not like them one bit. I wanted to say one other thing, and that is that if you go to Manly Hall's Secret Teachings book, and it's a picture that he has in the book, one of the main things, it's called the Egyptian key to the secret of alchemy. And if you look at that, and then you get Robert Temple's book, and you look at the Dogon sign for Sirius, you will see that they're exactly the same.
Oh, well, I'm going to be pulling that off my shelf as soon as we're off the phone.
Freeman, you got his interest right there with that one. We're in a couple minutes here. We're going to take a break, but I was thinking on the other side we can get into underground bases, the Denver airport, and I don't know if you guys know about this, but at the Intel Hub we got some weird information about the Schofield Airport in the Netherlands, and I'll let you guys know what we found on that. Should be interesting. I encourage everyone to check out your sites, jweidner.com and freemantv.com. We'll be back after this break. You're listening to the Decompression Session with Jeff Weber and Shepard Ambellas. We're back. This is a great show. Freeman and Jay Weidner right here on the Decompression Session on UPRN. Guys, I was thinking we could get into underground bases and the Denver airport. One interesting observation, and Freeman, you mentioned it earlier, and this is pretty interesting, and if people go back and really listen to this and pick this out of this Alex Jones interview, it might put some stuff into perspective. You mentioned the interview when Alex Jones was interviewing David Day Rothschild, and he kept calling him out saying, are you going to stay on the line, Red Shield? Are you going to stay on the line? Well, what a lot of people don't realize from this interview, and I caught it, Alex Jones, he kind of went about that interview in an interesting way to me, because he got David Day Rothschild fired up so that he stayed there on the line and he kept going and going. Well, one interesting comment that he made that stayed in the back of my head, guys, was Alex Jones had them all fired up, and I don't know if you guys remember this from the interview, but he said, well, when the end of the world's coming, we're going to be in our underground bases. Where are you going to be? Now, first of all, they weren't talking about the end of the world. They were talking about climate change. And second of all, you know, did he slip up and say that? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I don't think he slipped up. I mean, he may have slipped up, but he was telling us the truth.
Yeah.
That they're definitely planning for this thing. The ancient texts that they follow predict this. The Cross of Henday, which was built by a Freemason, which is the subject of 2 of my books, is talks about the coronal mass ejections that are coming. I've done extensive work on the Denver airport. There's no doubt that they're building these underground bases. However, I don't think they're going to work. And I just want to say one last thing before I let Freeman speak, and I want to correct something I just said. The secret of alchemy in Manly Hall's book that he shows is not the Dogon symbol for Sirius. It's there's a modern mapping of Sirius A and B in Temple's book, and it matches the Egyptian secret of alchemy.
Wow.
All right.
Very, very interesting. Freeman, what's your take on Rothschild spilling the beans, kind of just arrogantly saying, well, I'm going to be in my underground base. Where are you going to be? What do you think about that?
That's pretty much what they feel, and yeah, that's the thing. When you know the eclipse is coming, and you can be the shaman that says, "Oh, you know, the god is angry." The same way these guys have been tracking this data throughout their mystery schools, and they have this type of information of the timely events. And we can see clearly that, well, the Vatican just put out their Lucifer telescope in Arizona to watch the sun. We have the Wormwood Project over in Australia. We're seeing different shields being tested. I don't know if that VLF array that's going up in Australia, and NASA's putting in deep waveguide antenna. There's a lot going on to watch the sun. They had just launched the Solar Dynamic Observatory, the most high-def camera to watch the sun. Incredible footage. So, yeah, we see them preparing. You know, Doomsday Vaults in Norway with Bill Gates, and so in our minds, I mean, unless this is a big, big show, then yeah, they are preparing for this, and they have had the story of the second sun, and now we have the word of, say, like the Spanish team, the star viewers, that saw G1.9 as a potential binary star of our solar system and heading towards us. NASA comes forward with their Project Nemesis, which was just a mental game at the beginning. Now they're talking as if it's real. We do seem to have this second sun. The other satellite they sent up to watch was the WISE, or the Wide Infrared Spectra Analysis satellite up there to watch brown dwarfs, because of course they're invisible to our visible light. And so we see them looking. They're setting up base after base, and they're watching. But at the same time, they're building things like Dubai, Astana, Canberra, and all of these new world 21st century capitals. So it makes you wonder a lot about the new construction as they build it. And then, you know, do they plan on surviving, and can you imagine like the 2012 scenario where only the rich survive? I mean, the Queen has a lady who wipes her butt, right? I mean, what's going to happen when only those people are around?
The groom of the stool. I need to get one of those over here at UPRN. If anyone wants to volunteer to be the groom of the stool for UPRN, just send me an email. That's so funny. I mean, I can't believe that. Back to these underground bases. Well, actually, you know, like the Denver airport. What do you guys know about the artwork in there, and what do you think they're trying to say?
Well, that goes back to this idea that they've taken an oath that they have to tell us. This is the big question. When I was on Jesse Ventura's show and we were at the Denver airport, you know, he kept asking me, well, why are they telling us? You know, why are they telling us? And I'm like, Jesse, they're telling you because they have to. It's just something about this thing that they have to tell us. How they tell us, though, is up to them. And so they've chosen to tell us, you know, through these murals Well, probably the most famous mural, of course, is the Extinction mural, the one I call the Extinction mural, where the white race, the Native American race, and the black African race is in coffins, surrounded by all these animals that have gone extinct, like the dodo bird and the quetzal bird, and behind them the forests are burning. And and they have to do this, and it's almost like they're caught in a ritualistic thing that they can't get out of, even though we're calling the shots on them and telling everybody that the Denver airport is, the den of Satan, and they're going to go down underground and everything. Then they go and they put Anubis up. So, I mean, it's not like, you'd think that they'd say, well, maybe we ought to cool it for a couple of years until this all dies down before we stick Anubis here. And to be honest with you, I believe that the genetic material that they used to create Obama came from the King Tut exhibit, the King Tut discovery by Carter, and Anubis is there ostensibly to be an advertisement for the King Tut exhibit moving to Denver, but they're not taking it down after King Tut leaves. And if you look, I've gone to the King Tut exhibit that's going around. If you look at King Tut, boy, does he look like Obama. And King Tut was Akhenaten's son. So they may have gotten close enough, or they may have found Akhenaten. Another thing, so they're getting ready for this. Now, the thing that is interesting about all this is that their date was 2442. That's the date that these ancient texts say that the end of this age will occur. And so so 666 years before the end date, which was 1776, they went into action, thinking that they had 666 years to evacuate the planet and all of that, for them, not us, of course. And then I think that they discovered the Mayan long count calendar in Mexico, and they got freaked out, and they thought that maybe possibly their date was wrong, or maybe because there's a talk in their text of a twilight period that kind of exists after the destruction. So they may have then did a rethink in the early 20th century and said, we may be wrong here. The 2442 date may not be right. It may be the 2012 date, and so they decided, well, why take a chance?
Jay, I got to interrupt you, brother, because we're getting off topic. I really like to go back to the Denver airport. On top of all the crazy artwork and the exhibits and the statues, do you think that the Denver airport is what some of us would say a hub for ETs? And I've even heard it compared to what we witnessed in the movie Men in Black as a spaceport where ETs come to visit.
No, that's not my information. My information is it's ruled by the military, and I've talked to guys who laid drywall down there 60 stories underneath the airport, did plumbing and things, and they said it's... Pardon me?
Is it connected to other deep underground military bases?
Oh yeah, they're all connected. They're all connected. Yeah, there's a tunnel that runs from Offutt Air Base in Omaha all the way there. There's and of course what they're really doing is the reason it's Denver Airport is because it's high altitude. It's towards the center of the country, and everybody who's in power has an equal shot at flying an airplane, landing there, and getting underground. And then of course they're moving into the Rockies. And this may be for nuclear war, whatever. But I highly question the whole ET thing. To be honest with you, I think that most of the ET stories that we have heard were created by them as cover stories to hide what they're really doing.
Freeman, what do you think about the Denver airport? Possible spaceport, hub for ETs, or just military installation?
Yeah, I gotta agree with Jay. I don't personally believe that there would be that open of a Men in Black kind of spaceport going on there. Mm-hmm. That seems too far out for even me. But honestly, there's very little I can say. I've seen the murals. I've been to the Denver airport a few times. I see that they're preparing around it, that there seem to be many crops if you look at it from Google Space and you look down. But, I've not been down below, so I don't know.
Here's where I'm going to throw you guys for a little bit of a loop. And maybe one or both of you can check into this a little more and see what you come up with. One night, it was about 1 in the morning, and someone from the Netherlands came across the bat phone at the intelhub.com. We're like a CIA over here. We're a civilian intelligence agency, and we get intel all the time, documents, all sorts of stuff. This was by far some of the most far out stuff I've seen. But after reviewing all the documents and blueprints and paperwork and pictures that were submitted, it's starting to kind of blow my mind. There's this airport in the Netherlands known as the Schofield Airport. A lot of it is eerie and reminiscent of the Denver airport. There's an article right now on the intelhub.com that goes into it a little bit. It shows some subliminal or not so subliminal messages that are on an electronic reader board at the airport. Some of the interesting things at this airport that we know about are the entire complex of this airport. I would say, I don't know what it is, like a 1 mile square area or a 2 mile square area, something like that, is built like a giant acoustical antenna array. Everything is built in a weird-shaped acoustical manner that either would be built to divert sound from the airport, or they got something else going on. Now, where this gets real weird at this airport is there's these massive step-type pyramids that mirror Mayan pyramids on the property. They're massive. They have these UFO-looking capstones that were hoisted up there. They look almost, Freeman, it looks like that Egyptian eye UFO-looking thing between the two pillars. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know what that's called. That you see in some of this Egyptian type symbolism, where there's those two pillars and then there's like this eye of Ra-looking thing. I don't know exactly what that's called, Freeman, but it looks like that. And then there's these crazy reader boards and artwork in the airport that are in there. They were done by an artist that had done art in World Trade Center Building 7 and in the Denver airport, I believe. I'm going to read you guys an excerpt of what we translated off of this reader board that's very hard to read, and it moves at a pretty fast speed. And then I just want to see your guys' opinion. It says, advance warning, it's no fun watching people wound themselves so that they can hole up, nurse themselves back to health and repeat the cycle. They don't know what else to do. It's scary when the veins are so close to the surface that they are visible, and they are even protuberant. Access is easy to the blood that transports the necessary chemicals. Just one rotten spot in your head can make every moment painful. You can't roll your eyes, bend down, or jump and land with impunity. Even thinking hurts. Destroy superabundance, starve the flesh, shave the hair, expose the bones. Clarify the mind, the will, restrain the senses, leave the family, flee the church, kill the vermin, vomit the heart, forget the dead, limit time, forget amusement, deny nature, reject acquaintances, discard objects, forget truth, dissect myth, stop motion, block impulse, choke sobs, swallow chatter, scorn joy, scorn touch, scorn tragedy, scorn liberty, consistency, scorn hope, scorn exhalation, scorn reproduction, scorn variety, scorn embellishment, scorn release, scorn rest, scorn sweetness, scorn the light. It is the question of form and function as it is a matter of revulsion. That is a message that plays on this reader board in the airport, and it just kind of is eerie to me. A, have you guys heard anything about this? And B, what do you think about it?
I haven't heard anything about it. It sounds like a typical Freemasonic playing games with us, though.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that sounds very much like the structures that we're revealing now with the 21st century capitals with Astana, Dubai, and Canberra, which was the first pre-planned city that then was set up on a geometric grid pattern, very much like, there's been a number of them. In '96, they put the Bicentennial Mall out in front of Nashville, in front of the Capitol. And if you were to take a seal of Solomon to bind spirits, like he conjured 72 spirits and then made a seal to bind them all, that is the very shape of the Bicentennial Mall in front of the Nashville Capitol. It is also set up as an acoustic device where you stand in the center of pentagrams, and everything you say comes back to you from the 25 columns or the 50 columns around you. In the same way, when you look at Astana, which is in Kazakhstan, which is where the Russian spaceport is, you know, each of the G20 nations are now extraterrestrial. They're all launching into space. And you look at Astana, which means threshold, which is the entrance to the temple. This is laid out on almost the exact same grid as this smaller version in front of the Nashville Capitol. So we are seeing them use these alchemical tools to start to do frequency manipulation on the planet using sigils made out of cities.
Wow.
Hey, Freeman, before we run out of time here, oh wow, I hate when my mind does that. Can you elaborate a little bit about the theory on Jesus?
The theory of Jesus. You want to get me in trouble, don't you? Honestly, I haven't really worked my way up to Jesus. That's a mystery I yet to unveil and dig deep into. I don't know what to answer that with.
Some listeners were asking a question. They put it into our chat box. It must have been something you were talking about before. But back to the Schofield Airport and the Masonic temples and buildings and the layout of Washington, D.C. You know, does all that correlate? I mean, why do you think, like, for instance, why would they pick some of these airports, in your opinion, Freeman and Jay, if you could elaborate too, why would they pick, like, these airports to display some stuff like that? And you know how the Denver airport has that capstone, I guess you would call it. Supposedly it has a time capsule under it, much like the Georgia Guidestones, I heard, have a time capsule under them. Why do you think they choose to display things that are out of the ordinary at these airports? Is it just to put it right out in front of us, like you were talking about earlier? I mean, does that kind of project a reality to people? Is it just a in-your-face, here it is type of thing?
Well, the next pre-planned city was Epcot. And if you were to understand what Disney is, then you would understand, yeah, that the method is that it's the number of traffic, it's the number of people cycling through there. And when you start to look at Disney World and you realize that every ride in there is sponsored by a military industrial corporation, you know, people that build nukes have rides in Disney World. There's also a base on the dark side of the moon in their Mission to Mars ride. There's all kinds of clues and gestures inside of Disney World to give you the idea. Now, Siemens owns the giant ball that you see at Epcot, and that's the very corporate logo you would see over Auschwitz. These are the people, and so yes, I believe it has to do with the amount of traffic that goes through airports, just as Disney has so much traffic now. They're lead sorcerers. They just put out a new book all about magic, Egyptian magic and sorcery, and it's a children's book comparable with Harry Potter. It's called The Red Pyramid. I'm reading it right now. Actually, I'm reading two books, and one that's come up from the British Museum, all about Egyptian magic, and then this Disney book, The Red Pyramid, all about it. And I'm learning more about Egyptian magic from Disney than I am anything from the museum's book. It's amazing.
Jay, would you happen to know why the Denver airport is in the shape of a swastika from the aerial view?
Well, what the architect of the airport told me was that, that was for optimum landing, so they could have two of the things were for landing, and the other two were for takeoff, so planes wouldn't crash, which makes a certain degree of sense. So I accept that. However, I'm sure that they don't do anything by accident, and so, yeah, the Denver airport is, because it has a lot of traffic. It's a major hub because there's so many different airlines centered in Denver, and because it's in the center of the country, you can switch planes and fly, to different places easily. So everybody's going by there. So they're fulfilling one of their Freemasonic oaths, which is that they're telling us. And that's just something that they have to do. I don't know. I'm not one of these guys. I wouldn't join if they asked. So. That's all that's about, and I don't think it has anything to do with any geomagnetic thing or a mystical thing, but I could be wrong. I mean, the CIA is right now moving to Denver, so that could tell you quite a bit, if you know what I mean. So, so what they do is mysterious, but we're beginning to find out more and more, and because of the internet and shows like this, we're comparing notes, and we can tell what's going on now, and it's actually quite astonishing to sit and just look at all the great research that everybody's doing and figuring it all out, and I'm sure they're not very happy for me exposing all that stuff on the Denver airport, and they threatened me a couple times, but I just feel like it has to get out, and when the first time I saw the Denver airport was in '96, right after it came out. And by the way, believe it or not, there's a picture of Obama out on the web, standing in front of the extinction mural, looking very happy, by the way. And so, I don't know what any of this means, except that after a while, you look this way, you look that way, and you figure it out. And it looks like they're trying to kill us. It looks like they're afraid of some kind of celestial disaster, and it looks like they intend to rule with these Egyptian motifs and everything, and bring back the pharaoh, which is what I think Obama is. I think he's the pharaoh. They're bringing back the priest king to rule over us, not a politician, a priest king. It's a very different modality.
Exactly. And we can see this coming unfolding as the 10 regions. Now, Astana, as I've been talking about quite a bit now, was looked over by Henry Kissinger as they were building this back in the 70s, around 71. And, well, they started it in 1913, but in 71, Kissinger was involved, getting it all set up, getting the presidential palace all set. He also was the one who, with Richard Nixon, established the 10 FEMA regions, or the UN regions in America, and then putting the two capitals, one being in Denver and the other in Atlanta, and these will be the new capitals. Now Obama comes in, just passed his executive order to establish 10 regional governors, and at the same time we see Schwarzenegger and Will Smith running for president. That's curious, but we see it unfolding as they've had this plan for so long that they've had time to build their new capitals, world capitals, global capitals instead of just national, and they're establishing their regional government here in America. And so Denver is stationed to be one of the capitals and Atlanta the other. So you'll see the build up at these two places, and that's why that's going on. And I just wanted to throw in real quickly that they did find that KV-55 mummy was Akhenaten, and they did also find that they had Queen T's DNA. So after I had come out, I came out, said Obama was a clone. Next thing I know, a week later, he comes out and says human cloning is profoundly wrong and should not be practiced in any nation. And then I said, okay, look, I've got all the evidence here except for the proof that they have Akhenaten's DNA. Next thing I know, they're saying they're going to test King Tut's DNA next to Amenhotep III, which is Akhenaten's father, because they did not have Akhenaten's DNA, right? But all of a sudden, lo and behold, as they announced King Tut's DNA, they announced at the same time, hey, guess what? We actually did have Akhenaten's DNA and also Queen T's. So they do have the DNA, they do have the technology, they do have the ability, and the entire family is identical to this one particular Egyptian family, which turned Egypt on its head, started the Vatican, brought about the whole one world, one God theory.
Monotheism.
Exactly. So.
And are you saying that Michelle is Nefertiti?
Queen T, his mother.
She's Queen T, the mother. Okay.
We're actually starting to think that maybe Beyonce might be Nefertiti, and Jay-Z fits in there somewhere too. I know that's bizarre. I know it is.
There's some weird stuff surrounding Jay-Z too. Yeah, very interesting. Guys, we're limited on time. I want to give you guys each a minute, starting with Jay, to let us know what you're working on, plug your site, plug any upcoming projects you have before we got to get out of here.
I'm working on a film called Disclosure, which is a tongue-in-cheek title because I know the United States government or no government's actually going to do disclosure, and I'm intend to to prove what we've been talking about tonight with good interviews and things. Go to my website, Jay Weidner. That's JayWeidner.com, or our site where we sell all of our great DVDs and other stuff, which is sacredmysteries.com. And if you'd like to see about 300 free videos, you can go to YouTube and type in Sacred Mysteries TV, one word, and we've put up hundreds and hundreds of videos because the reason I'm doing that is because I think this window is closing, and I'm trying to get as much out before Akhenaten hits the kill switch on the Internet.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Freeman, go ahead, plug your stuff.
Well, strangely enough, currently I'm trying to win a competition to get to Dubai. I want to go to Atlantis in Dubai and film there and do some more of my filming. I've been filming for 5 years now, and many, many subjects. You can go to my photography on freemantv.com and see all the things that you will see in film, but right now are only photography. So if anyone wants to help me win this competition to Atlantis and Dubai, you go to freemantv.com and you just click on Send Freeman and Flo White to Dubai, to Atlantis, and it'll take you right to the video, and just click like on it. We're really trying to win this thing because that's the only way I'm ever going to get to film Dubai. Other than that, I'm spending the next 3 months to really hammer out the book on Barack Obama, on the sorcerers of Atlantis, and really get this out to the people because, like we're saying, the Internet kill switch is there. Print has always been the way to transform society, so I'm going to write my book and get it done.
Sounds good, guys. We're running out of time. I thank you both for coming out to the decompression session. We'll have to do it again. Absolutely amazing show, guys. Thanks, and thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.